plays those kinds of double games with us, that the way that the ideology works, because capitalism is perfectly prepared to allow certain kinds of equality, like the equality that we're all equally prepared to debase ourselves and debase other people. But, you know, nevertheless, what did exist in Big Brother, and was illustrated by the number of text messages that were sent into the show, kicking on and saying, this is great, carry on, maybe something really good is going to happen here, is that was at the same time some kind of what you're saying about Lukács in terms of an objective possibility. Now, I don't think Kitten picked a really good target to create objective possibility within the Big Brother house, but what we've got to do really is aim for that kind of objective possibility in the outside world.
Yeah, there was somebody over here. Yeah.
Or you come here, or is there... sorry.
Thanks. Yeah, I mean, it's just one of the things that was sort of muddling through my brain while the discussion was going on, was there's a sense in terms of how we move beyond to take the red pill version of breaking down ideas. The idea that somehow all we have to do is lift the scales from our eyes and suddenly we'll come up with... You are referring to red pill in matrix. Yeah. Yeah, that sort of approach to the way out of the system is often, I think, presented as well, actually all we have to do is make the right choice, simply go, we reject this, and we'll see through things, the scale, we'll have a road to Damascus conversion, and so on and so forth. And I think that in itself is something that we do break through, and we actually start, I think, in a minute, the debate within the movement about not just what are you against, but what are you for, as a learning and live process, with all sorts of mess in it. And one of the reasons I was thinking that was with that moment when there was a pause in the meeting, where there wasn't any hands showing, remind me of that Wilhelm Reich told the story of a demonstration of German workers that he saw, and it was a huge demonstration, it was incredibly vibrant and political, and then it got to the park, and there was a sign that said, don't step on the grass, and all the workers merrily walked down the pathway, not touching the grass. And there's a sense in terms of the structures of what a lot of time we're doing forces backwards. And I think it does mean that therefore there has to be an opening up of debate about how we organise, about how the movement comes forward, but in the process of actually discussing the concrete changes we want to make. And the reason I say that is that the socialist tradition in terms of utopias, I think, is about creating utopias. That we actually come up with better ideas as we're fighting for things. We actually is in that mess, and I think we should defend the idea of the messiness of politics, of a living movement, actually throwing up debate, and also throwing up ways of looking at the world as we're in the process of changing it. And I think a good example of that is that sense in the way when, while Reich suffered from all sorts of things, and particularly going completely insane in a sense, but a sense of someone who was thrown out by the psychoanalysts for talking about politics, and thrown out by the Stalinists for talking about sex all the time, where there's another tradition on the left, which is, yes, it's messy and confusing, but how do we bring these together? But it is about debates about sexuality, debates about ways forward, that includes an open discussion, but also includes things like the tradition of the nudists who demonstrated as part of the Russian Revolution. I mean, very literally, in terms of you think of having a nudist demonstration as part of a revolutionary process, doesn't fit with the way in which these things are talked about, but as a live actuality of real change, suddenly all sorts of things open up. And I think in terms of one of the things we're learning at the minute is that process of confusion and messiness, but also looking and clarifying and discussing, and that's what we want to take.
One more hand.
Okay, then okay.
My name is Salim Ahmed. I was interested in your comments about Israel-Palestine. It seems to be that you're talking about a very brutal impasse. So the not being irreconcilables, really, in a sense. Benny Morris' argument that the job should have been finished, really, in a sense. But the point really is that the reality is that it is a brutal impasse. The reality is that there is state terror going on at the same time via suicide bombers. So I'd like you to make a connection between that, the logic of this, the logic of the Algerian Revolution, the logic of the exterminating the brutes out in Africa, and you know what I mean, the logic that the colonial project led to extermination of civilizations. Absolutely. I mean, that is the same kind of colonial logic that's operating in Israel in this century. And the other thing, and how do we connect it to imperialist policies? For example, the imperialist policies, for example, Cambodia, bomb it between 1969 and 1974, forget about it. Pol Pot comes in power, then America supports Pol Pot. You know what I mean? There is a logic to that. You know, you may be looking for signs, but the signs out there. The signs are the brutality of imperialism that is ever present in the world today.
Okay. I will start with the last one. No, I simply agree with you. Wait a minute. I was not in any way endorsing Benny Morris' conclusion. My point was just that we should honestly admit these deadlocks. And as to if you're asking me now this concrete, I know very well, relatively well. I have many friends there. The situation. For example, learning from my friend Udi Aloni, who was very much hated by making a wonderful gesture. He visited Arafat, and being filmed, he asked him, what can we Israelis do to apologize for the horrors and the very fact of doing it in such an open way made him an outcast even among Israeli liberals, because Udi Aloni, drew my attention to another crucial fact there, that we should drop this simplified, promulgated by the liberal media opposition, how should I put it, bad fundamentalist Jerusalem versus good liberal Tel Aviv. As he told me, and he's a progressive anti-Zionist Jew, that of course in Tel Aviv they are all liberals because there are practically no Palestinians there, and they are glad for it, If anything, an average Jewish fundamentalist, if by fundamentalist we mean Orthodox who deeply believe, practice, and so on, has even on average, my friend Udi Aloni even made a kind of empirical statement, hypothesis, have even a little bit on average better relationship with Palestinians than the average liberal. For him, if you look at the history, all the most brutal decisions were usually inflated by secular liberals. So, we should be very careful here. As to all this terrorist stuff and so on, I don't have any problems here. Under certain circumstances, I'm absolutely ready to condone terror. If you are trying to catch me here, I don't have any problems here. I just think that, how should I put it, again, my point was only that I don't like this typically liberal way of washing away, concealing the fundamental trouble and making it into a minor issue of, we did it the wrong way, we were not tolerant enough. And then, because if you take this path, you end up with that ridiculous show that I saw with my own eyes on Israeli TV when I was there a year and a half ago. They were bombing, demolishing a house of suspected so-called terrorists and so on. And and they did it in a more human way. Israeli army came, but not brutally. First, an officer knocked on the door and said, "Lady, I'm